What's up, everybody? Kuroda here. Bacon Mob's with me over there. What's up?
Hello,
Our resident
I'm
friend
back.
James. We haven't done a video together in a while, have we?
I don't think so. Like I've been on streams, like my
Yeah,
voice has
yeah.
been on streams,
We
but I
haven't.
don't think we've made a video in a while.
I think the last video we did was the link. No, the Ocarina of Time.
True.
Uh,
I mean, yeah, we've made like edited videos together. I mean, like just a video where we like had a
yeah,
conversation
where we had
kind
a chat, and we did that all the time on your old channel too. So it's anyway.
of. Yeah.
That said, guys, welcome to a new, I guess, series, whatever you want to call it, which I kind of was thinking about this before year's end. I was kind of thinking of things that I wanted to do in 2021 to kind of just put out more consistent content and stuff that I'd be interested in. And one thing, as we just touched on, that you and I have done a lot in the past, especially on your channel, but on this channel too, is doing, just giving our thoughts about what's going on in the gaming world. And we've done like reactions to Nintendo Directs or E3. We did those discussions with John and things like that. So I thought it'd be kind
Mhm.
of fun, to do just like a sort of weekly or bi-weekly, whatever it ends up being, segment where we talk about what's going on in the world of gaming, what news there is. So, dun 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 dun, drum roll, please. Do you want to tell the folks what we came up with for our name?
I mean, you're the one that
Well,
that
they could
came up with
they could see it anyway. They could see it. They clicked on it. So, yeah, it's Kuroda
it's
Mob
Kuroda
News.
Mob News. I wasn't even planned. Wow.
Yeah, Kuroda Mob News, Bacon Mob, Kuroda Kaisuki. I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know. I just thought this would be like a fun idea that we could kind of play with, do like a little half hour, 40-minute segment, and just kind of give our thoughts on what's going on. And there's not, I was going to say dozens, there's hundreds, probably thousands of different people on YouTube trying to do this. So it's certainly not something I want to hang my hat on, but I like the idea personally of just giving our 2 cents. And I think we have some really good discussions.
Yeah, I've always liked the way our discussions have gone, like and like it's nice to kind of like expose your audience to stuff that they might not have seen otherwise.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
think especially with gaming, I tend to focus a lot on whether it's not really even intentional, but I tend to do a lot of Nintendo related comment or content. So for
yeah,
me, it's kind of like I like being able to stretch my legs and talk about other things, that's going on as well. So it's nice to just kind of, for me, be more in the know and just be like, with games, it's nice to be better informed in terms of, I don't know about you, but it's a rarity these days when I buy a brand new game. So if I buy a brand new game, I want to know, like, I really want to know what's going on with it, like what people's thoughts are on it. Um, and it's
yeah.
it's
Plus,
easy to
like
follow
you,
what's going on. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, I just find that you kind of gain more of an insight of like into like which developers tend to release a polished product, which ones
Yeah,
tend to like work on the title after it's released, things like that. So you kind of know a bit more ahead of time going into releases.
yeah,
You're not just kind of going in just based on the marketing. If you're kind of more aware of what's going on behind the scenes.
yeah. I totally agree with that. I think that actually segues very
It
like
does.
very nicely into actually some of the stuff we're talking about today. Particularly, we're talking about you wanted to talk about Cyberpunk a bit, and I think that's a really good
Yeah.
example. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like they only just released the 1.1 patch. Like they've done nothing but hot fixes before now.
mhm.
And they still have like a roadmap for the next few months to even just get the game to like a state that it frankly should have been when it was released.
Yes,
A
yeah.
lot of people would say.
And
Um,
we've talked about this before. I haven't been following that as closely, but I also do feel that there was probably pressure on the developers because do you remember how everybody reacted when it was delayed? And
I do for sure. It was delayed multiple times too, right?
yeah, I mean they are ultimately the ones that released the game, and there were all those problems. But I'm sure all the pressure of trying to get it out doesn't help either.
Definitely not. And there's that's like the kind of this push and pull that happens, right, between like the publisher who wants to get it out before the holidays and in time for the new consoles, and the
Hmm.
developers who want to release a polished product and who want to get everything, all the bugs ironed out
Hmm.
before they actually release it. And obviously, the developers did not win out in that scenario even though they worked their asses off, obviously, because it sounds like they crunched pretty hard to make that just to the state it was.
Hmm. And with the new
But
patch, did they
yeah.
did they say like what specifically have they been did they
I
update?
think they've just been getting rid of a lot of the bad AI and like texture popping, and I mean, there's plenty of bugs that people have I've seen footage of. There's a lot of like T poses going on where like people aren't animating correctly,
Hmm.
so they've got a lot of stuff ahead of them to fix,
And
especially on like the older consoles like PS4 and Xbox One.
it seems like it's running better on PC though, from what people are
Yeah, if
saying.
you have a PC that can handle it, for sure. Then I
Hmm.
mean that's basically the system it was designed for. Really, it was designed to be like a state of the art graphics pushing
Hmm.
game that you're going to need a super powerful gaming PC to run. But they also marketed it for these older systems
Yeah.
pretty heavily. There's in fact a Cyberpunk branded Xbox One. So like, you should reasonably expect it to run well on
Oh
these
yeah,
systems.
they've really been hyping the game up more than almost any other game that I can think of in the last like year or two.
And it sold like crazy, but like I haven't heard anything about refund numbers. But it'd be interesting to know, like, because they sold like over 10 million copies already.
Hmm.
It'd be interesting to know how many of those were refunded, though.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, I would too. I don't. I haven't played the game myself yet. I think definitely depend. Based on what I've heard so far, I'd like to get it on Steam, which is well, that's my only option now anyway. But as I was saying before, I'm glad that there is all of this like discussion about it because you know back in the day you just kind of bought a game, you know,
And hoped for the best.
yeah,
Like you
hope
were
for the
just basing it
best.
on magazine articles,
Yeah.
basically.
And spending a full $60 on a game that they had to patch day one and then they patch again and then there's still issues with it. It's like it's a bit unappealing to get it.
Yeah, I think the difference is that like I don't know if a game like this would have ever been released in this state with this many bugs. I mean, there are some examples of games that were released and were pretty buggy,
Hmm.
in pretty buggy states, even back before patches were as much of a thing. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of the people higher up would just like, well, we'll just patch it out later, right?
Yeah.
Like it's fine. That's everyone else does it, so it's fine.
What's that quote from Shigeru Miyamoto?
Oh, I think yeah, I think about that like every time I think about Cyberpunk. It's like a delayed game, or sorry, a good game is eventually good, or a delayed game is a delayed game is eventually good, but a bad game is bad forever.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Well, let's hope that they can release some like hopefully they can continue to work on fixing the game and it eventually just doesn't they alleviate most of the problems.
I'm sure there's a good game in there. I'm sure like they have a good track record, right? So
Hmm.
we'll see.
Totally.
But
Maybe we
like,
could talk about the Resident Evil 4 remake development starting over because that kind of ties into what we were talking about. How they kind of had to restart. They basically have restarted it,
that's
right?
a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like they did it in so much the same way they did Metroid Prime 4, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they kind of were just like, this, we don't like the direction this is going, so they just kind of like, as they would say with Miyamoto, upended the tea table.
Yeah.
I think it was a different studio that was making it, but like, I guess Capcom didn't like that they so closely adhered to the original RE4. Like, they actually wanted them to do something a little different with it.
Hmm.
So they were literally just like making the exact same game with really nice graphics, and they were like, no, like, the RE2 and RE3 remakes actually kind of added something to the experience and made them like more modern games.
And it
So
seems
I
like
think,
Resident Evil 3 got a bit more criticism um, from what I was reading. Uh, I haven't played Resident Evil 3. I did run through 2 with Matt, which we did on the channel, and I thought the 2 remake was really awesome. But apparently, people had some issues with Resident Evil 3. I've never played the original, and I've never played the remake. But apparently, people were saying that it like deviated too much from the game. So I guess people have been
hmm,
kind of having an issue with that, where if Capcom is saying that it was too close to the original, that they're worried, especially because it's Resident Evil 4, right? That they don't want it to be so different that
yeah,
it's.
I mean, I've played through that game so many times. I have a hard time imagining that just playing through it with nicer graphics would be like worth it. I don't know.
I agree with that. That's where
Because like
I would say I disagree with what they were saying about it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I tried playing a game like Shadow of the Colossus or look at a game like Demon's Souls, and I just wonder like obviously it looks nice, but I wonder if it actually adds anything to the experience if you've already played the game enough times.
Hmm.
Like when I played Link's Awakening on the Switch, I kind of got that feeling a little bit, but I enjoyed the art and the music so much, and it was such a like a different take on it at least
Yeah.
that it kind of made up for that a little bit. But when you're just making the graphics look nicer,
Well, especially
um,
like if you use
I don't
Link's
know.
Awakening as the example, I mean, you have such a huge difference between the the black and white Game Boy cartridge style to like this
That too.
vibrant, beautiful thing. Whereas Resident Evil 4, I mean, that God, they've been releasing Resident Evil 4 on the last what, four console
Yeah, if
generations,
they
three console
that'd
whatever.
be the other. That's the other thing. Like if they hadn't released it so many times on so many different systems, like it would have had more of a punch if they had been like if we hadn't seen it since the PS2, GameCube
Hmm.
days. Um, then it would have been cooler to see it come back as a
What
remake.
what I would like would be personally for the Resident Evil 4 remake, keep the story essentially the same, maybe do a bit of expanding on it, and then just do more like just update the mechanics and give us a couple of extra scenes and things like that, and ma- inject something in it that makes it a fresh experience. Maybe I don't know. I thought the way they did Resident Evil 2 was really good. So, but that remake also is very similar to Resident Evil 4's playstyle. So it might have worked well for Resident Evil 2 because Resident Evil 2 is such an old game. But yeah, I think they do need to do something. I think the answer is in the middle there. They need to do something different enough where it keeps it interesting, but retain that main feel and the story of Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, and I mean to segue into their new project, apparently Resident Evil 8 Village is actually pretty heavily inspired by Resident Evil 4.
Hmm.
Like obviously it takes place in the village for one thing, but there's like there's also like a wandering merchant who follows you around who you buy
Yeah.
guns and stuff off of.
I was talking to Matt about this when I saw him a few weeks ago. Uh, he seemed pretty excited
So
about it.
yeah, I mean that kind of has me interested. Like I wasn't really paying that much attention to it. It wasn't that I thought Resident Evil 7 and 8 looked bad. I just was kind of waiting until I had a VR headset to play them. So I kind of just like put them in the back of my mind and didn't even bother thinking about them.
C7 took it a little bit in a different direction, which I think was really good for the franchise. And if they're gonna do some, if they do something like that with a Resident Evil 4 remake, I think it'll do well. But I could understand the whole not wanting to make a carbon copy of the game. That kind of seems like a bit of a safe route too, you know?
Yeah, I'm worried there's going to be a lot of that this generation.
Yeah,
A lot of like, we're going to just make this game again, but in 4K, 60 FPS. But they're
yeah,
not actually going to do anything new whatsoever.
yeah. I'd much rather see like a new or have like a new experience. But
I
when
mean,
you
we
have
kind
a
of saw
game
that
as
last
beloved,
generation too.
yeah. But I mean, when you have a game as beloved as Resident Evil 4, it's difficult to balance that for sure.
Yeah, certain games deserve remakes, and or even just like they deserve to be like brought forward to new machines just to like preserve them for the sake of like preserving their cultural impact and their history.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people say that's really important. Um, so that's one way that like remakes and remasters can kind of make that easier,
Hmm.
not having to like preserve these old discs and cartridges and not having to resort to piracy.
Yeah, I totally agree with that for sure. Um, on that note, with again that see we're starting out really good. Everything's the conversation's flowing well. Um, going in, there's been a couple of other studios, like we were talking about before, where Konami announced that they were restructuring their gaming division. Um,
Hmm.
and you have the stuff with Capcom, and you have the stuff with Activision. Um, it's I think it's interesting. It's We talked about this a while ago, and this is I don't know, maybe this is for like a whole different video where we can just discuss separately about the whole idea of consolidation in the industry. But I think people do have some legit concerns there, but there's also a little bit of I would say something with the Resident Evil 4 and what Capcom's doing is a bit of an overreaction, but I could understand, particularly with Konami, like their history, why people are concerned, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Konami's a pretty bad example of
Yeah.
a company who has just like gone where the money is, which apparently is pachinko machines now.
Yeah, yeah.
But with Capcom, even like they were back in the day when they were releasing Resident Evil 6 and they were Dragon's Dogma and games like that. Like these games were selling millions and millions of copies, but Capcom was still projecting that they would sell more. So they were still actually losing money. And like because they had gotten so big that they needed to sell even more than like these blockbuster numbers they were getting. So that's like a pretty good example of a company getting too big.
It, it reminds me, like, I'm pretty sure when the Wii U came out, they projected some insane number that they thought they were going to sell and fell so short of it. Like, so incredibly short of it that it's like, well, maybe you should keep your expectations in check a little bit, you know?
Yeah. And like, yeah, another good example that you just mentioned with Activision is how like they gobbled up Blizzard. They also bought up, I mean, they bought up Vicarious Visions years ago, but the Vicarious Visions has been making great games for decades. They just made an amazing Tony Hawk remake. They made the Tony Hawk games on the GBA.
They did the
So it's
Crash
pretty
games
cool.
too, right?
Yeah, they did the Crash remake. But it's pretty cool to see the team that like did the portable Tony Hawk games for years, like actually go back and remake the first two games on modern consoles and do such a great job.
Yeah, yeah, they look
But
awesome.
but of course, then they got shut down. Not so much shut down as Vicarious Visions is no longer Vicarious Visions. They
Yeah,
are part of Blizzard now.
yeah.
And the rumor is that Blizzard shut down their classic team that would make RTS games like StarCraft 2. They just made the Warcraft 3 remake. And now instead of them, I guess this former Vicarious Visions team is making a Diablo 2 remake,
Hmm.
which I will play.
Yeah.
So, I disapprove of the business practices, but I love Diablo 2. So
Speaking of that,
what can I do?
I'm gonna do this for Dave. He says he wants to play Diablo 2 with you, so just putting that out there.
Oh, nice.
But he
We should
actually
play
needs to.
some.
Dave, if you ever see this, you need to freaking download WhatsApp
We
or
should play some
Discord.
Diablo Immortal if it ever comes out in Canada. Apparently it's already out in Australia, I
Oh,
think, or
really?
something. They're doing like a closed beta or something. Like sometimes they'll do like test runs in smaller markets. Like I think Canada actually got Dr. Mario World long before the US did or something.
Yeah, they got that
'Cause they do that
Castlevania
sometimes.
game that never released too.
Really? Hmm. But yeah, I don't know. It happens. It sucks. The industry's getting more. Well, the number of publishers controlling the industry is getting smaller and smaller, and it sucks.
But it's a weird. It's such a weird. It's almost like a. Oh, what do I want to say? It's strange because while that's going on, indie developers are just like doing great stuff, and they're getting a lot of support too. So it's you know, I guess
Yeah,
you got
it's
to take the good with
amazing.
the bad sometimes, you know.
It's amazing to see the Switch be such a like success story for indies.
Yeah.
Especially because like I mean it kind of happens on the Switch too, but like on Steam, a lot of indie games are just getting kind of drowned out by the ridiculous like deluge of releases coming out on there.
Yeah.
But it's like all the stuff that comes out on Steam that kind of like rises to the top usually comes out on the Switch. But I mean, now we're seeing games come out on the Switch before they come out on anything else, which is
I
kind of crazy.
had also read that Nintendo recently, um, I believe, put a cap on the price of indie games. Did you hear about that?
I did notice that people were like manipulating the sales to like put their games on sale for 99 cents like a
Hmm.
lot, and those games would always do really well regardless of the quality of the
Yeah.
game, seemingly. just
So I,
based on what I see.
yeah,
So
and I don't think they
that might
wanted
be why that
games like
happened.
that to be on the best sellers for like the week or whatever. So I think
Yeah,
they
because I
capped it
think
at like 199. You have to sell it for at least 199.
because like they really rightly have a pretty like I don't know if people who buy the Switch now really realize how terrible Nintendo's reputation is for like digital games on the Wii and Wii U
Hmm.
and the DS as well. Like they made some great games for sure, but there's a lot of really terrible games on WiiWare for some reason.
Yeah.
And the Wii U had a lot of really strangely like cheaply made indie games. Like and they were all from the same developer, which
Yeah.
was very strange. They have like different skins of the same game on sale. Like I didn't understand how this was getting past Nintendo, but anyway.
Well, they were probably in. They themselves weren't doing so great, so I guess I could see it.
But even the Wii too had a lot of shovelware, and like the Switch has its share, but it like also has a lot of really great games, so
And dis-
you can't complain.
and despite that, to go into our next topic, the Nintendo Switch is selling like crazy still. I
Yeah,
was, they were just reporting. I just read that article to you before about how it made up 87% of console sales in Japan, which is insane. But it's not just the Switch; it's the other next gen consoles. So, um, I don't know if.
yeah. I mean, it's the fact that it's selling better than the PS5 and the Xbox Series X is pretty crazy, frankly. I mean, it is cheaper and it's been out for longer, has more
Mhm.
games on it. Um, but the PS5 is also doing better than the PS4 did at the same point in its life cycle. And apparently, the Xbox Series X had the best launch of any Xbox ever.
Yeah,
So, like, it seems like the game industry. I mean, I'm not surprised the video game industry is getting big during a quarantine.
during the situation, of course.
And the Switch is like the way that they've marketed the Switch Lite as this thing for your kids. Like they've done a great job of like they said years ago. I don't even remember that. I think even this it was the CEO that said it. It was like we want to market this as like something you buy multiple products for your household.
Hmm.
And I think they've done an amazing job of marketing it like that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. If we had like I think if we had the means to just kind of buy a console like that, I'd get a Switch Lite so that way I could play with Rachel or whatever. But so if you have a little money and especially I imagine a house with multiple kids, like I can see that being probably
totally.
a big appeal. Instead of getting the normal Switch, you get the cheaper Switch Lite, and they all get one. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just kind of, the perfect Nintendo system in a lot of ways. Like they finally kind of just found, I wouldn't even call it their niche at this point. They've just found that balance that they never really could um, ever since really the N64.
With the other next gen consoles, do you think there's been some and pardon me for not following this, and this kind of just came up actually in conversation, which is cool, but I don't know if you know better than me. Do you think there's been some like sort of artificial scarcity going on with any of it, or do you think they just can't keep up with demand?
Um, there's maybe a little bit of that artificial scarcity with like the PS5 and the
Hmm.
Xbox Series X. I think a lot of it too is just that like um, the pre-order systems and the online shopping systems are like not designed properly to deal with bots, and
Yeah,
then resellers just like buy up all the consoles every single time new stock becomes available.
yeah. I
I
have a
think that's
coworker
seems
who
to be a real problem.
Yeah, I have a coworker who always talks about that because he bought both next gen consoles, and he ended up selling his Xbox, but yeah, he said
Wow.
it's been crazy the prices that he's been seeing on just for PS5s, like $1,000, like even like retailers selling them with a bundle, but you're still gonna spend way more than the retail price for it, so it's crazy.
Yeah, that's the other thing they would do. I remember when I bought a Wii and when I bought a GameCube, I had to buy a system that came with a bundle that came with a bunch of stuff like accessories or controllers or games. That was the only way you could get it at launch because
Hmm.
they wanted to make more money from you,
And
GameStop or your EB Games.
I imagine there must be manufacturing issues as well due to the pandemic,
Totally.
because that's going to slow things
Plus,
down too.
plus, I think like they're competing for silicon with and for chips like with other companies like that are making cell phones and laptops, and like they just can't compete with they can't keep up with the demand, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm kind of surprised, like sort of surprised, but sort of not surprised how well the next gen consoles are doing, because it seemed like to me a mistake to even release them in like at the end of the year
During a
where there's been a
pandemic.
pandemic. Yeah, but it seems like it was the best. I mean, look what happened with Animal Crossing. You know, when things first like really
Yeah,
started.
that was like
Yeah, when things really started going bad, I mean, like people just, God, just bought that
I
game
think that
up.
was the luckiest timing ever for a release of a video game,
Yeah,
like in the history of video
yeah.
games. Something like that, anyway. Um, what was I going to say? Like, what were you talking about right before Animal Crossing? Oh yeah, like I think they kind of had the dates set before COVID happened. Like they kind of had the wheels in motion for all of this. Like I don't think they could have really delayed it, um, because this stuff is planned. Like all everything, the marketing push, the distribution, like the manufacturing of it. Like I don't see how they could have delayed all of that, even considering COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know. At least that's what I've heard from you know
Well,
journalists or
regardless,
whatever.
it's seems like they're doing well, and I guess they were smart for like both companies were smart for releasing the consoles. People seem to really want them, so um,
Yeah, I don't know if you think this would be a good segue, but I mean it did well for GameStop, and GameStop's been doing pretty well in
yeah.
other ways lately.
When you sent me that, and I was reading about it, I was like, thank God for Reddit.
I've been like I still go on Reddit fairly often, and I've been seeing Wall Street Bets stuff like kind of bubble up to the surface every now and then
Hmm.
lately. And I didn't really think anything of them for the longest time. And I even kind of saw little things about how they were like feuding with this research firm about GameStop's viability. And it almost turned into like like a show of bravado. It was
Hmm.
like they didn't want to be wrong, so they just started buying up this stock even though it was worthless, just to stick it to these people. And then people on CNBC started coming on and saying that like all these neckbeards and basement dwellers on Reddit are like manipulating the market, so that everyone on Reddit is like pissed off and they're like, all these baby boomers are talking shit about us. Let's stick it to them. So it becomes like this huge bidding war between these like Wall Street hedge funds that are short selling GameStop and like Reddit people who have like never bought stocks before, who are like completely upsetting the stock market and like crazy. Like I guess they also had some kind of speculation about BlackBerry,
Hmm.
and now that's caused their stock to skyrocket. And like the CEO of BlackBerry literally came out and was like, "I have no idea what caused this. Like I don't know why our stock has gone up." Like
I'm not gonna complain.
it's just like this is the power of Reddit these days, apparently.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh,
crazy though.
that was a great. The guy, somebody had put in like 55 grand and
uh
made 11 million
Yeah, I saw that. I
off
think
of
that was
that.
the guy who made the most money.
Yes, yeah, he made the most
It's
money. That's still
insane.
very impressive.
I mean, apparently it was based on like actual intel about GameStop
Hmm.
having a new CEO who wanted to take them in a new direction, and like them having a better quarter than they were expecting because of the new consoles. Because it's not like they were like just this wasn't just purely based on all of that, but it kind of became that. It
Yes,
kind of like
yeah,
almost became a meme war,
yeah.
and then that's when the stock went absolutely bonkers. And it's
Well,
just a crazy story. Like I don't know that that's ever happened before.
you older generation who are just maybe just shy of boomers and just a little too old to understand internet culture and things. This is your future.
Oh my God, I was listening to like a business reporter on CBC on the radio trying to explain Reddit, and it was hilarious. Like they had no idea what Reddit was.
It's wonderful.
It was pretty
The
great.
internet was going to be the single thing that both destroys and saves humanity. Uh, well, and I think the last point, unless you wanted to say more about that, the last thing we had to say was you were talking about Xbox's little speaking of sort of schemes,
Uh,
or Microsoft's.
Yeah, yeah, like,
Microsoft's been having a lot of success with Game Pass, but they've been trying to get people to kind of move over to that. Um, so I guess part of that strategy was to increase the price of Xbox Live Gold, which is what you need to play games online on the Xbox. But like the thing was that even on other systems, you could still play games like Fortnite for free,
Hmm.
but on the Xbox, you still required gold. And then they were raising the price of it on top of this. Like the yearly subscription was literally doubling
Yeah.
in price. So a lot of people, understandably so, gave them a lot of negative feedback about this. And they I think they reversed their decision the same day that they
Wow.
announced it.
Yeah.
So they not only announced that they were not increasing the price, but that they were also making games free to play, like actually free to play.
I gotta give Microsoft that they, and maybe it's because of the situation that they kind of were in last gen, where they were sort of always behind. It seems like
Hmm.
they've become very um, not self-aware, but they're definitely being smarter. I think in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
It
it
was
seems
good
like
that they cleared that up really fast.
it seems like they respond to criticism a lot more quickly because they're trying to be as consumer friendly as possible because they
Yeah.
want to get as much goodwill as possible.
I think particularly in the gaming community, there's feet are held to the fire a lot, which is nice. I think more than any other medium, I think because of social media and just the nature of gaming. I mean, I just think there's I think a lot of the time gamers have a lot more say than in a lot of other mediums. I think.
Kind of seems that way, yeah, because we're definitely, I mean, yeah, we're definitely one of the more vocal
Yeah.
subgroups on the internet, seemingly. And they're also the types that, have a lot more direct access to the developers.
Hmm.
Because you don't really see a lot of the, technical members of the filmmaking community, like, being directly messaged on Twitter about stuff. Like you don't see like the animator, Lord of the Rings, getting messages on
Yeah.
Twitter, but
Or if you tweet at politicians or something, it's not like that's gonna change their vote. Whereas like if enough people kind of get on a company for doing something kind of shady, they will. There's a pretty good chance if the cry is loud enough, they'll backpedal. So that always gives me like a little optimism when it comes to the industry. I
mhm.
think because I mean there has definitely been like toxicity and stuff, but there is a lot of I think I think a lot of good as well. Um,
Yeah, and there's a pretty healthy, like at least independent media that exists. Like there's a lot of people who talk about games on the internet, right? Like
mhm.
on YouTube and who have blogs and stuff. So there's gonna be a lot of people who even though there's a lot of corporate media, there's plenty of independent media as well who are going to call them out immediately on that kind of thing.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's really nice to in this industry. I think.
And
Um,
I think stuff like Patreon kind of helps that stuff exist, right?
totally. And I think we went through all of our topics, man. But
Cool.
the last thing I wanted to talk about, which I was really excited to, was this cool thing, which I'll have a graphic up, and there's several of them. But of course, my favorite is the Lego Metroid pitch. It looks so cool. I just saw they have
Yeah.
an Animal Crossing one. They had a Zelda one. I would love to see some of these designs, uh, exist. It'd be cool to just see them on shelves and be able to buy them. I might actually buy a Lego set. you know?
Yeah, I mean, they made Mario Legos now, and I actually have it upstairs. My nephew has it, and it's
Nice.
pretty great, honestly. Um, so, I mean, now that they've made that, I mean, the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like I said, like a kind of silly little piece of news, but it's just kind of cool, and it would be really neat to see what other.
Yeah, if they made a Zelda Lego, I'd be all over
Oh
that.
yeah, totally. It would be cool. What would really work for a Zelda Lego is if they did it in the style of like the 8-bit Zelda.
That would be cool. Yeah,
That would
like
look,
kind of like the Minecraft one. Was.
yeah, that would be awesome. The Metroid one looked great too. I thought Ridley was awesome, and Samus's ship, like what a cool concept. And I think that's the one that got the most. They voted on it, right? And it got the most votes. I'm pretty sure.
I didn't see that, honestly.
Yeah, it was something like that. I think it got like 11,000 votes or something when they were doing the pitch or whatever it was. But it looked it just looked kind of cool. I thought that was a nice little snippet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that was all the topics
Awesome.
we had for today. But yeah, this was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of
do
fun.
this more often.
Yeah, I agree. And we had a nice little transition through everything we wanted to talk about, so it was nice. Hopefully there's some more news. What we are planning to do is if we get like slow news weeks, because there's definitely lulls for sure. We've thought about even just instead of 1 week talking about the news, just doing some other discussion like we've done, right?
Yeah, totally. That would work.
We've touched on like just some of the topics. We kind of brushed over a lot of different things, but a lot of these topics, like just the direction the industry is going in general, or game development, or talking about a specific studio or a specific company or all that. I'm sure you could. I could probably just like go downstairs and get a coffee, and you could just go on and on about VR for like an hour.
There's definitely been plenty of times, that I've gone on rants about that particular subject.
That's the thing we forgot about, the Valve CEO.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if we could, if you want to touch on that briefly, there was, I guess, Gabe Newell is also talking about like potential for new interfaces in virtual reality, or like, even using your hands and legs, like you could like potentially control other creatures or whatever, other consciousness. Who even knows? But sounds pretty interesting. And I mean, this guy's always saying pie in the sky stuff, but when he talks, I listen. I don't know.
Well, there's so many like amazing things they're already doing with VR, which they've really, in the grand scheme of things, just dipped their toes into. And this guy's talking about like you don't even need to, just like manipulating like your brain waves and all this stuff. I'm like, geez.
Yeah, I think that would require like the whole Neuralink thing that Elon Musk is talking about, which some people aren't on board with. But I don't know. Depends on how invasive it is, I guess.
A topic we'll go really in depth with on another episode.
Next time. Another, yes.
But thanks, guys, for checking out this video. Thank you, James, again, for doing this. This was really fun. Keep an eye out for these. We're going to try to do them like, once a week, once every 2 weeks, depending on our schedule. We're both pretty busy. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You want to take us out, James?
Peace out, everybody.
Bye, guys. Peace.